Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Beat Teacher Burnout. It's a little bit different today because there's three of us in the chat and slightly unusual guests. We have an insurance specialist, a partner at Morton Michel, who I met recently, Sue, who was at the Childcare Expo, and what they're doing there is really amazing in terms of staff well-being. And I wanted to share some of what they're doing. And I've also got Tessa with us, who is the founder and mindset mentor at Mini Me Mindfulness. So, welcome to both of you amazing guests. And Sue, do you want to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Sue Lee. Yeah, I've worked with the childcare and education sector now for 10 years, having joined Morton Michel, been in insurance forever. From my point of view as well, well-being and looking after yourself and, just knowing who you are, having now sort of progressed my career throughout the last sort of 20, 30, maybe longer years, has put me in a position of leadership. And I just think it has been crucial to be able to manage yourself during that period to have that best impact on people. But yeah, that's me. And I'm really, it's lovely to be here with you, and I'm looking forward to today's chat.
Thank you. We'll come back once I've introduced Tessa, then we'll come back because something you said is really important there.
Okay.
Thanks, Sue. So, Tessa, do you want to tell people a bit about you?
Of course. So thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me onto your podcast. I'm absolutely delighted and honoured to be here. So I'm Tessa Hawes. I'm the founder, CEO, and a very proud mindset mentor with Mini Me Mindfulness. And we help children to build calm, confidence and resilience through positive mindfulness, mindset techniques and neuroscience. We blend them all into a fabulous, fun and innovative sessions. And we work with schools, nurseries and communities. And also help the adults around the children to also create that calm, confidence and resilience, because little eyes are always watching, but you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah, and I love that because I was in school for over 30 years, and actually there was so much focus on supporting the children, absolutely rightly, but as you say, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I was watching both myself and the staff I was working with become more exhausted, more stressed, and all of them heading towards burnout. And unfortunately, that's where I ended up. But I guess today we're gonna look at some strategies and some stories of where you've both been. And Sue, could we start with what you talked about, learning about managing yourself as a leader?
Yeah, I think from my point of view, I've always been somebody that has wanted to work really hard, work hard, do the right thing, and have taken my career really, really seriously. I'm also a mum and a nan now, but I think it started with when I had young kids, and it got to a stage I was working 3 days a week. I was in the city. Well, I was actually in the Docklands. I was living in Eltham at the time. And you know what? I got myself to a situation, my kids were only 15 months apart, and where I was walking home from work and everything like that, people were just having a normal life around me. And I was just like in this mental, what these two people speaking to each other like that for? I just couldn't deal with the normal life. Now, I'd get on the train, I'd come home and I'd be all right again. But I knew that I was in such a rush all the time that I couldn't carry on with that. I made the move and I actually wanted to become a nutritionist, believe it or not. And my husband's a personal trainer. I wanted to become a nutritionist. And I think that sort of shows I've always had a thing about looking after myself, but I didn't. Insurance drew me back in again. I do love what I do. But throughout my journey, I've always ended up managing people. And sometimes you've got such a workload on and it's constant, you do forget about you. So I've always had that awareness of looking after me, spending that time running, spending that time. And now it's Pilates because my back won't hold up with the running, and actually ensuring that people see the best me come to work. I feel like I'm the best me that comes to work. And I find that if I can just look almost in on myself, and see that actually I can contain workload, I can contain the stresses, I can be my best me at work, and hopefully that then gives my team, people that everyone works with each other, the right attitude. Look after yourself and your team. A happy team will sort of appreciate that and be their best selves and be more, produce more at the end of it, increase their productivity, be happier at work, which is so important. That was a really long answer, but hopefully that kind of explains, I've had to sort of go through quite a few decades there, but it still lives with me every day, and it's so important.
Yeah, I love that, because the research shows, I mean, it's so obvious, isn't it, really, that if we're in a state of thriving or flourishing or flowing, whatever you want to call it, then we are going to be more productive and energetic and creative. But actually, to get to that place, we need to do some work on ourselves. And ideally, you do it as a whole team. And obviously, that's what I teach on, so that the whole school or the whole nursery has a culture change, because every adult then becomes more self-aware, has time to reflect, change habits and mindsets. But what do you do? I was so struck, I suppose, when I met you guys at the expo, about what you were doing to improve the wellness of
sector.
Early years educators and everybody. What is it that you're really doing?
I'm so first of all, Morton Michelle, we believe in the sector. Whilst we provide insurance, we provide protection, we provide support. We were 60 last year, and actually understanding the sector is where we can give the most value. And I have the pleasure of sitting on the board of the Childcare and Education Expo Advisory Board, worked with some fantastic people on that board. And I came off of a meeting, and everyone was talking about actually, the key issues in the sector. But, educators are exhausted. There's staff mental health pressures. You've got parents coming into nurseries and into settings under pressure from everyday life, and that's increasing number of children with special educational needs, pulling more demands. There's all sorts of different areas. We run a workshop every year at the Childcare and Education Expo, and I came away and I said, I really want to do something for wellness. I want to give back. I want to be able for Morton Michelle to give back, and the team are absolutely behind it. I had all sorts going on. I was like, let's do healthy lunches, let's do this, let's do that, and everyone had to calm me down a bit. But that's where, James, Gary said, we know Tessa, and we had a conversation. I think it was Gary had a conversation with you, Tessa, and so we actually brought Tessa to the expo to actually run a workshop. We invited you invited our clients and parts of the sector that we work with, and we're actually wanting now to. That was a success, and what we're doing now is really building on that in terms of our support to our customers and to the sector. It's not just about our customers, it's about the whole of the sector. And, working with Tessa to offer some tools to them to help them, managing these stresses they're seeing every day. So this is an ongoing sort of campaign or a partnership now that Tessa and Morton Michelle have, to hopefully just really spread that message of A, we want to help, and B, give people tools and, ideas and strategies to be able to help themselves. And we particularly focused actually on leadership. If you can start with you being, it starts with you, it starts with you and bringing in that culture. That's that really thing. So that's how we all got together.
Interesting. So Tessa, what are these strategies these tools that you're sharing?
Well, do you know what? Listening to Sue's story, the streets of London have got a lot to answer for. So my journey actually into kind of mindset and mindfulness, and really kind of crafting my own way of taking control of my mindset to kind of create change and success, came from I mean, I spent 23 years in the city in the insurance sector, similar to Sue, and I was part of the leadership team in one of the biggest insurance brokers in the world. And when I became a mum, I had, Oscar came along and I went back to work and I was literally juggling city life and parent life. So I was one of those parents that was running into the nursery. Actually chose a nursery that was close to the train station, so with many parents running in, dropping your child off, and then running to the train station. And I'd literally just run around the city all day, and then kind of closed my laptop at 5 o'clock. I was in one of the high rises in the city in the cheese grater. And at 5 o'clock, I would down tools, run back to the train station and then back to the nursery. And I'm sure many of your your listeners will probably resonate with this in terms of life is fast paced. It's busy when you're a single person. When you become a parent, that kind of multiplies because you've got other people to look after and rely on. But there's one particular day I was running down the red lines at Bishopsgate to get my train at Liverpool Street, and I was literally running full speed to catch my train, and my foot hit the top step of just before I went down the escalators, and I literally went flat out. I fell flat on the floor, the contents of my bag kind of sprawling across the pavement, all the commuters just stepping over me as they usually do. And at that point I just thought, something has to change, something has to improve, because I feel like I'm doing a great job at work. I'm doing a good job being a mum. I felt like I was kind of amber-lighting everything, but the one person that I wasn't necessarily looking after was myself. So at that point, I decided, to make some changes, and I started to really get invested in kind of reading about personal development. And like many of us, I think when we kind of we know we're stressed or anxious, and we know we've got too much on our plate, we don't really know where to start. And there's so much out there in terms of podcasts and YouTube and books, and we can read about all these kind of things, but being able to pull all these strategies in together, I honestly felt like I needed another part-time job. So I created my own kind of routine of all the personal development actions that I felt were really important. And I started to, what I now call it, boss my morning. So the strategies that I started when I was in the city, I still do today, 12 years on. My son's 14 actually next year. And the strategies I kind of onboarded for myself, I then started to share, and then Mini-Me Mindfulness became a result of that. And I now share in the kind of staff wellbeing experiences as well. So really the strategies is to get up a little, which sounds like you're adding something else to the equation, but I get up half an hour earlier than I was previously, even with a baby and getting to the city and the nursery, because I recognised I needed to spend some time with myself before the day began. So I started to go to bed a bit earlier. I was exhausted anyway, and then get up earlier and then lean into meditation, gratitude, affirmations, visualization, being inspired by someone, either reading something or watching a YouTube, or being inspired by somebody else, and then writing an action list, but not giving myself the whole to-do list, writing an action list that had 5 things on it that I thought, if I do these things today, I'm going to feel really satisfied by the time I go to bed. And that's going to just change the set of the sail slightly to be able to get me to where I need to get to. So that was the strategy. That was a kind of a realization, and then being able to looking around and pulling something together. And then I had other people asking me, what is it that you're doing? And that's when I then created that through an app, which I share today. So the strategies are simple. They're not, some of these things are, they're ancient techniques. They're not things that I've developed myself. But when we blend them with modern neuroscience, we recognize why they work. And wind forward 14 years, and I am in such a better place than what I was. I still have a successful businesses. I've got a lovely family. I'm thriving, but I always put myself first. And like, Sue said, it's important. Sometimes life means that it feels noble to put other people and everyone else before ourselves. But as they say, like when you get on a plane, put that oxygen mask on you first, because then you're of much better support to everybody else around you. So in terms of techniques, that's kind of what drove them to get to where they are today. And it's lovely when I have, when you're able to pass on that level of kind of knowledge, experience, and of how to slot these things into a very busy timetable, because that's where most people are right now.
It can be. So it can be really challenging sometimes, because I'll wake up and I'm very much a morning person. But I wake up and if I've got a lot going on and I've been here, there and everywhere, I have quite a lot of travel these days with my work. And so it's easier for me to get up and make a coffee and go back to bed and do my work. Yeah, it's still comfortable. But that's almost part of my routine. Instead of getting up, making a cup of coffee and getting out and doing my Pilates and whatever. That being said, I will do my Pilates before I do something, but I will work it around my time. But I think that's what you were alluding to. You will give up on your own time first before you give up on other people's time. And the thing that I find really important for me is a network around you that know you really well, that can put you right sometimes. So when they see you maybe not doing your techniques, your thing that works for you as regularly, or that you're working that bit harder, or you can see your kind of stress levels going up, that you've got that somebody just to tell you, because you do fall off. I fall off that wagon sometimes. And that goes back into not just from your family, but for me, it goes into a workplace where you've got that culture around you where, you know, I've got colleagues, close colleagues, friends, they are friends that I can see when they're just needing that. It's okay, you know, just forget it, just close your laptop and go away, or go and do that run that you want to do, or whatever that looks like. But they will do that to me as well. And I think having that culture around you keeps you on track and is important as you managing yourself as well.
Yeah, I think that's interesting as well, because I think with fitness and things like that, we kind of know, we know if we're not in physical shape, we know how to fix things. We know we need to go for the run or get in the gym or do other things. But with our mental fitness, we're becoming more aware, and it's just a case of being able to understand what fits with us in terms of what feels good and what we can do to build upon those things that are going to support us. But that self-awareness is really key, Sue. And I think learning that together is important. But I think that's also the importance of doing some of the work like you do, Rowena, in sometimes going around the, in the settings that you do, to create that self-awareness and give people that space to be able to learn those new tools.
And I think the really interesting thing for me is, so the course that I have is 5 minutes at the start of every staff meeting. So it's not an add-on, it's not Donut Friday or anything like that. It's part of what schools do, and it brings energy then to the staff meeting. But the really interesting feedback is that staff find it really difficult to talk about themselves to each other. And actually, when you're looking, for example, sharing your strengths, you know, they are really struggling to be honest and open and a bit vulnerable with each other. And where Sue is saying, you know, we need colleagues who are looking after each other, who are looking out for each other. We need to be watching each other very carefully and also using each other's strengths. But that is not, it's not a given. I had assumed in the course I was doing that in a timed minute, staff would find it really easy to talk about, yeah, this is where I had impact today. This is one time I made a difference to a child or a colleague. They do not find that easy because there's so much competition and so much, oh, am I going to be found out to be a failure? Things like that in not all schools, but in many schools, that actually to get to a place where you can be honest and say, actually, I really helped a child today, and this is why, and this is what happened, and this is the result of it. I remember a time where I was with a child in lunchtime. I think he was 4, and he'd had a very, very tricky morning. And I asked him why he was in there, and he said, "Oh, I've been really naughty, miss," and all this. And I said, "Well, what were you doing?" And he explained that it was all attention-seeking behavior. So I said to him, "Do you know that you're really special? And you don't need to do that to get your teacher's attention, but you are really special." And then I went on to talk about how he could change his afternoon and, you know, all the normal stuff that we do in schools. Anyway, the next day, his mum came and said to me, "Do you really think my son's special?" I said, "Absolutely, I do. He's completely special." I said, "Wow, I had no idea." And all he'd gone home to was tell his mum that he was special. That's the only thing he'd remembered from our meeting. I probably spent 20 minutes with the poor child. He just remembered that he was special. But I'll never forget that moment that the parent came and said that to me, because I changed his outlook. I changed her outlook to him and actually to herself as a mum. And, we've been talking this morning already about how stressed our parents are, and they're not seeing the gifts. They're not seeing the beauty in their children, because they're dashing around, just like you two were, running from work to home to managing the house and everything else. And actually, we're not stopping to reflect on that and to see where we do make a difference, because that's what we do every day in education settings. We do it all the time, but we don't notice it. And if you don't notice it, you're not going to internalize it and get the validation from it.
Yeah. One of the things as well is one of the things that I've learned to start doing is to journal how I am feeling. And I started doing it because got a problem with my back, and it was because of pain. That's why I started doing it. And I had this kind of thing, and I still believe that there is a case of stress, inflammation. It can go to a certain, it can show in different ways. So I started thinking about what was my healthy score that day? What was my happiness score that day? What are the things that were unusual that day? And literally I spent about a minute on it every night, just writing it. And that just even thinking about it, and I'll think about things, I don't want to do that again. I remember I've got 2 grandchildren, and hearing your story there, Arena, and I can see my daughter, she's in a rush all the time. And I can sort of see it sometimes. But that again is that network of people that can help everyone, because sometimes you just can't change things, can you? People are really, really busy. But it's just that writing it down, pulling it out, and being able to actually recognize what you've done well. And I think that's where, and pulling out your strengths and talking about your strengths, I agree with you, is not something that you hear commonplace. You will hear what you've done wrong, what they feel that they've not done right, or what they feel that they've failed at. And that's a culture that actually, if you turn that around, it's positive affirmation, it's just positive speaking. Sometimes it's changing language. Instead of saying don't, can you, do you think you could, however that works, is, you can be a negative language or positive language. And it's a cultural piece as well.
And it's also a change in habit. Because I don't know if you're aware, Sue, but the research around journaling is it's so powerful in terms of helping us to change our self thoughts. And we have something like between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts a day, and of those 80% are negative. So journaling is one of the tools that can really transform that, like what Tessa was talking about earlier with gratitude and affirmation. But it's about noticing your impact. It's about having a positive outlook on the day and seeing things from a slightly different perspective to then change the way we do life. And it's taking that time to reflect. There's nothing that is going to bring about change unless we invest some time.
Yeah, and it's those small pockets of time, isn't it? It's like the small pockets of time and that creating those habits that really do create that long-term change. And I'm really, really passionate about, creating those habits. Like I say to children when we're teaching affirmations, like, I am special. And actually, what do you do twice a day when you're looking in the mirror? Do you brush your teeth? Yes. Right. So that when you put your toothbrush down, or you could use it as a microphone, and you could say to yourself, I am special. I am happy. I am unique. Whatever it is, whatever the belief system you want, you can create that. And actually getting that, knowing that we are, with neuroplasticity now, we know that we can change our brain and the wiring and what wires together, fires together. And we know that happens. So we can change how we feel. We can change how we respond. We can change how we feel about ourselves and that internal kind of workings by what we're saying. And also, giving ourselves that moment of stillness to be able to prioritize that. And it's really, really important. So really simple techniques that can take like a couple of minutes here, there and everywhere, but keeping them simple, but doing them daily, because that daily repetition absolutely creates the change.
Yeah,
Can I just
I love
mention
that.
one
I love
thing?
that. We're going to probably need to wrap up because I promise staff that we won't generally go over 30 minutes.
Oh,
So I really try
absolutely.
to
We
honour
could
their
just
time.
carry on all day. That's what we could
We
do.
could. We could. But Sue, if people want to find out more about you, where would they go? Do you have a link or a website?
Yes, so Mort Michelle, it's mortmichelle.com, and we're part of the PIB group, again, website, that's us. We're on LinkedIn, we're on, and I'm personally on LinkedIn as well. So yes, that's us, and it's Sue Lee, and thank you for having us today.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes. And Tessa, if people want to find you, where
Absolutely.
would they go?
So we're on, the best place to go is to our website, which is www.minimemindfulness.co.uk. I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. But yeah, the website will give you all the contact information and lots of information about the things that we are currently that we work with children, with parents, with teachers, for staff wellbeing, and creating that change that we want to see, and that culture change we want to see in schools, nurseries, and staff rooms as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you both so much for your time, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Arena. Thank you for inviting me.